right, well, the Young Turks, we got an exciting show today. Yesterday was a little sad, and we do have heartwarming stories today later in the program. We got stories that might make you cry. They made me cry. We asked the important question later in the program, is Santa Satan? Satan? But the guy making that claim actually makes a little bit more sense than you might imagine. How is that possible? That's why God created the Young Turks. You're going to find out later. And of course, we're going to start with Cuba, right? Wrong! We will not be starting with Cuba. We will be doing that a little bit later in the program as well. But if you're missing the first segment, you've made a terrible mistake in your life. But you don't know it because you missed it. So, anyways, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell Randy Gonzalez we're coming. Let's have fun, because that's what this first segment's about. All right, let's start with Republicans. Okay. This gentleman by the name of Representative Blake Farenthold, he's a Tea Party Republican, and he got swept into office in 2010. He used to be a conservative talk show host. Conservative, yes, he's from Texas. Okay, well, he's having a little bit of an issue because his former communications director is suing him. Okay, I wonder why she's suing him. Well, let's find out. Here are some of the charges from Lauren Green. Now, she was fired, and she says she was fired because of sexual harassment, that she would not play ball with sexual harassment, and that's one of the reasons she's suing. Farenthold, according to Lauren Green, regularly drank to excess, and because of his tendency to flirt, the staffers who accompanied him to Capitol Hill functions would joke that they had to be on redhead patrol to keep him out of trouble. Apparently, he likes ginger. Okay, so he'd get loaded and be like, time for family values. Here we come, redheads. Okay, now, I'm paraphrasing. I don't know if that's exactly what he said, but wait till you get a load of the other things that he's charged with saying. Now, look, it's a lawsuit. You take it for what it is, and they'll see each other in court, obviously. The congressman reportedly shared his sexual fantasies and wet dreams about Green. Oh, this is where it got really uncomfortable. With other staffers. Oh, good. When you're having wet dreams, it's best to share. And regularly made comments designed to gauge whether Green was interested in a sexual relationship. Turns out she wasn't. Okay. In February of 2014, Farenthold reportedly tried to entice Green into a threesome with a female lobbyist. Okay, interesting. You know how we always say Republicans are in bed with lobbyists? Apparently they literally are. The more the merrier, right? But again, Green did not take part. We don't know if the lobbyists showed up. Okay. Now, he told Green that it was okay because he's estranged from his wife and hasn't had sex with her in years. Well, one could hardly blame her. But this did not end well for anybody involved. Now, this is a disastrous lawsuit here, obviously, and if these charges prove to be true, he's, of course, in a lot of trouble. I love the way they uphold family values in Texas, of course. Now, but if you're saying, hey, look, that stuff, they still got to go to court over, you don't know for sure, and he might be family values in other ways. Well, that's fair. So here's another piece of evidence that you might find interesting. He apparently owns a website that he was basically cyber squatting on since all the way in 1999. They don't deny this. His office says, oh, well, we weren't using it. I mean, we weren't planning to use it. I mean, we probably won't use it. What was the website? www.blowme.org. To be fair, blow-me.org. It's a porn site. Of course, it was intended to be a porn site. They say they have not used it for porn yet. Well, are you not merciful, Republican congressman of family values fame? Okay. If you're not all the way sold yet, let's just show you a goofy picture for fun to get you home. Now, to be fair to Congressman Farenthold, she is not a redhead. You see that? He has a little bit more diversity in his lineup than previously charged, okay? In some ironic way, it makes me want to hang out with Congressman Farenthold. I don't want anybody I know around him, but I'm like, just get him drunk and see what he does. Oh, how do we not get this guy together with Rob Ford? Oh, Rob Ford, Farenthold, and a plate of Coke. Go to town, hoss. Oh, the damage they could do. Come on, you tell me that wouldn't be fun? Hey, listen, don't worry. If you lose your seat, there's a good reality show in here somewhere. Maybe we pair them up with, they want to do porn with Mama June, is that what she's called? With the Honey Boo Boo Mom or whatever? I'm not saying anything, Farrenhold, I'm just saying, don't do it, for Christ's sake, don't do it. Okay. How much would it suck to work for congressmanblowme.org? That pun is only slightly intended, but not really. Okay, anyway. We move forward. That's fun. Okay, now, that's a Republican. Okay. We go to a Democrat next. Okay, we're equal opportunity here. Virginia Delegate Joe Morrissey has turned the House of Representatives into something else entirely in Virginia. Might be the big house. Why? Because he's going to jail. And he thinks that he could still legislate from jail. He has not resigned. Okay, why is he going to jail? Because the charges are that he has admitted that he slept with an underage girl, 17-year-old who was a receptionist in his law firm. You're going to hear in a second what he did to her because he brags about it. Interesting, should not have done that. Now, of course, since he's a politician, he admits he did it without admitting he did it. First, let's show you a good delegate here from Virginia, Joe Morrissey. That's what he looks like. It's surprising anybody, receptionist, was interested, but there it is, you know. These guys hold power, yada, yada. So what did he do? First of all, he did an Alford plea. And now, to explain what that is, media says it maintains his innocence, but acknowledges sufficient evidence to convict. He was sentenced to 12 months in jail with 6 suspended. So now already this is something that regular citizens don't get to do very often. If you go to a prosecutor and you say, all right, listen, you got me. I'm going to admit I did it, but I don't want to admit on the record that I did it. So I'm going to pretend I didn't do it while I say, yes, go ahead and convict me. Prosecutors usually go, yeah, that's a good one, dude, that's a good one. But when powerful people come in and say, I do declare, I'll take an Alford plea, all of a sudden the prosecutor's all ears. So anyway, he gets 6 months actually in jail. The other 6 months are suspended. Well, what's going to happen in jail? Wait till you see the different rules for powerful people. Under a work release arrangement, Morrissey has been allowed to leave jail 7 days a week. I don't know if you know this, there are only 7 days in a week. Now, to be fair, though, it's only from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Just today, though, it was cut back to only 12 hours out of jail. So he's just got a hotel cell inside a jail where he goes and sleeps. He can leave the entire day. That's not a jail sentence. That's not jail. You're pretending he's going to jail while he's not going to jail. He just sleeps there. I mean, we don't even know if he's got a roommate named Bubba. So he might skate entirely, right? This is only for the powerful, of course. Now, furthermore, the absurdity continues when they say he might just simply get out of jail, go into the Virginia legislature, and continue to legislate. The arrangement also allows him to carry on as a practicing lawyer and a legislator in the Virginia General Assembly's 2015 session. Now, of course, the Republicans have asked him to step down, but the Democrats have as well. His own party's like, dude, come on, you gotta go, man. You gotta go. This is terrible. But so far, he hasn't made up his mind. At the end, I'll show you what he's waiting on. But first, we go to the Washington Post for a description of what he did with that receptionist and his excuse for it. You're gonna love this. When he was charged this summer, Morrissey proclaimed his innocence. He said his phone and the girl's phone were hacked. Well, of course they were. And the photos and the trail of text messages between them were planted. Of course they were. According to court documents, Morrissey texted a friend of his, hey, buddy, I assume he says, I just fucked her on my conference table and again on the floor for good measure. Detectives said they found 15 nude pictures of the young receptionist on his phone. Wow, what a hack. Okay, his claim is, how did those nude pictures of the 17-year-old get on my phone? It must have been those North Koreans. Oh boy, I can't believe they did this to me. How about the text you sent to your buddy? Oh man, I gave it to her there, I gave it to her. Oh, you should have seen what I did. Very clever hack. All of it. Okay, so what are you waiting on, dude? You gotta go, geet, right? Nope. in a press conference from church. The lawmaker opted not to resign and instead declared that he will let God make that decision. As far as we can tell, God has not weighed in yet, but once again chose a curious man to whisper in the ear of. Hey, after you're done with the receptionist, why didn't God talk to you before you had sex with the receptionist on the conference room floor? Okay, all of a sudden after you're caught, guess what he found? Jesus. Hey, Delegate Morrissey, now that you're going to jail, kind of, who would you like to turn to? Jesus. Who did you not listen to right before you had sex with a 17-year-old? Jesus. Okay. Here we go. Now, let's be fair, actually. He had sex on the conference table and again on the floor. But it could have been the kitchen floor, but I think it was the conference room floor. All right. Now, we're not done with these representatives. I love these guys. Let's keep going. Now we go back to a Republican and back to national politics. You remember that legislation that just passed, of course, omnibus bill? Everybody remembers it, and I refuse to call it what everybody else does, cromnibus. Well, you guys are cute in Congress, right? No, you're not cute at all. Anyways, the most odious part of it was a provision snuck in there that said, oh, by the way, the Wall Street banks that are doing tremendous gambling in derivatives, $700 trillion worth, I find that number amazing every single time, they're now going to be allowed to gamble with your money. They're going to gamble with depositor money, and then if they get burned, they keep all the winnings, but if they lose, then the taxpayers have to pay for it because those are all FDIC insured by the government. Okay, so this is as bad as it gets. Now, of course, if you could find an advocate for it, like the lobbyists for Citigroup, which actually wrote that portion of the legislation, 70 out of the 80 lines came directly from a Citigroup memo. They will tell you, oh, no, this is to help the markets and to lubricate the financial markets in a way that it provides more efficiency and growth. Yeah. Well, who's the guy who introduced it? Turns out it's Kevin Yoder. He's a Republican of Kansas, and he's the one that introduced that provision into the bill. Now, here comes the interesting part. Kevin Yoder has gone missing. No, don't get into conspiracy theories. The Rothschilds didn't kidnap him, okay? He's not on the Appalachian Trail. No, it's just people are asking for comment. Hey, you inserted this provision. Presumably, since you're the author of it, you're proud, right? Can we get any kind of comment? You're happy, you're unhappy. It wasn't what you expected. It's exactly what you expected, and here's why you put it into the bill. Nothing. Okay, so the press asked him. There's no answers. In fact, largely his response has been, what? Me? Who? What? I put the provision in? I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, well, what has he been saying in social media? Because, you know, these congressmen, they are always on Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that. And they checked his Facebook account. Twitter. Everything in the world. Gone. Okay. They can't find Kevin Yoder. Amazing. Huffington Post explains, Yoder has been mum about the spending package since it passed the House. His office hasn't responded to multiple requests for comment on why he slipped the Citigroup language into it. The press statements on his website say nothing about the provision for the spending bill. There are no posts about it on his Facebook page. He said nothing in his Twitter feed. And then here's the part that I find interesting. A whole bunch of people then go on his Facebook page and they're shocked and chagrined. He's a Republican from Kansas. Who do you think he works for? He works for the banks and he works for the Koch brothers, who, by the way, are enormous financial speculators. You might not know that part of it. Everybody talks about Koch Industries, but an enormous amount of money that the Koch Industries makes is through financial speculation. And they're from Kansas, and they bought the Kansas legislature almost wholesale. That was another interesting story about how they did a coup against other conservative Republicans to get their toadies in, okay? And so who do you think made Yoder put that provision in? But yet, Republicans in Kansas are like, oh, they're shocked and chagrined to find out that their Republicans work for the big banks. You guys are amazing. Of course they do. Of course they do. Here's, for example, Diane Lavenberg. She says, I've always voted for you, Congressman Yoder, but I'm disappointed with your yes vote on the omnibus bill, and we, your constituents, deserve an explanation as to why. Please clarify your involvement regarding the taxpayer bailouts for risky bank investments also included in the omnibus bill. She's genuinely surprised. She's like, wait, I thought as Republicans we were against the bailouts of the banks. No. You're against the bailout of the banks. Your representatives and your senators love those bailouts. They're the ones who are now planning to restructure all of Dodd-Frank to assure more bailouts of the banks. That's happening as soon as they get into office because Wall Street is celebrating. There's a different article today in the news talking about the lobbyists for the banks are rolling up their sleeves because they're like, yes, the Republicans are back in charge. That means the banks get to do whatever we want and run amok again. Any safeguards they had, they're taking them all away. You think Republicans represent you? I can't believe that in this day and age anybody believes that. These guys are the biggest sellouts. It's not like the Democrats' hands are clean. At least half that party is corrupt as well. Half of them voted for this omnibus bill with that provision. President Obama lobbied for that bill overall. He's the one that pushed it through. So the Democrats are not perfectly clean by a long shot, but the Republicans mastered this. Of course it was a Republican from Kansas who put it in, and of course he's on the run and he's not going to answer those questions, because if he did, he'd have to tell you that he works for the lobbyists and the donors. My Republican brothers and sisters, join us, wolf-pack.com. Until you get the money out of politics, these guys are never, ever going to work for you. They're going to work for the people who sign their checks. Wolf-pack.com. Together we can do it. Let's fight. Let's fight. Come on, let's go get them. You know what? In the process, maybe we'll find Congressman Yoder. There he is behind that bush. Hey, there you are. Remember, Yoder's not coming for us anymore. We're coming for him. Okay. Now, I'm not done with goofy politicians. And I'm not done with Kansas, and I'm not done with Republicans in Kansas. Stay with me. All right, let's do it. Okay. Did we write that? Okay, anyway. Sam Brownback has created a large hole in the budget in Kansas. Now, he's the governor there. And he said that if you do tax cuts for the rich, that it would actually spur the economy of Kansas and they would have more money. That turned out to be completely untrue. What they did was a huge giveaway to the rich, and the economy of Kansas suffered. There was no trickle-down economics. They didn't get more jobs. They had less jobs. They did worse than the national average, and it created a huge deficit in Kansas. He's filled some of that deficit by cutting education. So, hey, Kansas, you voted for a guy, and by the way, you just reelected him, that gave away all your money to the rich and then cut education for your kids. Brilliant move. But he still has a hole in the budget, a $280 million hole. For the state of Kansas, that is gigantic, right? So how is he going to fill that hole? Well, let's find out. Talking Points memo explains, Brownback offered his proposal for closing that hole last week, a mixture of spending cuts and transferring funds from other parts of the budget to fill it. And the second biggest of those transfers is $55 million in revenue from a Medicaid drug rebate program that was bolstered under the Affordable Care Act. Interesting. In other words, he took $55 million that was created because of Obamacare. Now, wait a minute. I thought you hated Obamacare. What's going on here? All of a sudden, when you're backed up against the wall, Obama, where are you? Please help me, I'll take your Obamacare money. Now, is he saying on the record he's taking Obamacare money? Of course not. In fact, I love this part. Reporters asked him about it, his office. Here's what happened. Here's the whole interaction. When contacted by the news agency, a state health department spokesperson initially told reporter Andy Marceau that Obamacare doesn't have a role in the $55 million that will help save the state's finances. But the spokesperson later corrected themselves, saying they had gotten incorrect information about the ACA's role in the pharmacy rebate program. So yes, in fact, they are taking it from Obamacare. So you hate it for political reasons and you speak out against it, but all of a sudden when you need that money, Where's Obama? Where's Obama? Please, please help me, Obama. Fill my hole. The dude's name is Brownback, man. What do you want from me? Okay. One more note here. There are no legal restrictions for what states can do with Medicaid rebate money, Bowen said. According to Goosen, it has historically been used to help pay for the state's Medicaid program, but desperate times, desperate measures. So, in other words, I am desperate because I already spent all your money on tax cuts for the rich, and I was supposed to help you guys that are getting Medicaid in my state. Those are people who desperately need health care. That's why they're getting Medicaid. Sorry, you're not going to get that money. Instead, we're going to take it from Obamacare and fill the hole created by the tax cuts. So more help for the rich, more money taken away from the people of Kansas. You keep voting for Brownback, this is what you're going to keep on getting. Hypocrisy, lies, reliance on Obamacare while pretending to do otherwise, and in the end, the money transferred from where it can help you, the average citizen, into the pockets of his donors, the very rich. Okay. Now, I'm not done yet. Let's stay in Kansas. Let's stay with Republicans and go to those Koch brothers. Now, Koch brothers originally out of Kansas. David Koch happens to live in New York now, and let me tell you all about him. Barbara Walters is coming out with her 10 most fascinating people of 2014. This has become a bit of an obnoxious list lately, and perfect for a guy who is among the most obnoxious people in the country, David Koch. Now, she, under the guise of asking him tough questions, is instead going to help him resuscitate his brand, a little rebranding. I mean, they're seen as these guys who are pouring money into politics, which they are, there's no question about hundreds of millions of dollars, going all to the most conservative Republicans in the country, who are going to gut programs that help average citizens, and all in the name of deregulation, so that Koch industries can continue to pollute and do all the other things that they're doing, bring down wages at their different companies, so the average guy has less money, and tax cuts for the rich. And the Koch brothers are as rich as it gets. Now, is that what Barbara Walters is going to ask about? Not exactly. Now, let's watch this portion of the interview, and then we'll break it down for you.
Do you think it's fair that just because you have billions of dollars, you can influence elections?
Well, I contribute to public candidate campaigns, and there's a federal limit on how much you can contribute to each individual candidate. I obey the law in that regard and feel that I'm doing it properly.
You are not well liked primarily because of your very conservative politics. Describe your political point of view.
Well, I'm basically a libertarian, and I'm a conservative on economic matters, and I'm a social liberal.
You support gay rights, you support a woman's right to choose, but conservative candidates you support, many of them, do not have those views.
Well, that's their problem. I do have those views. But what I want these candidates to do is to support a balanced budget. And I'm very worried that if the budget is not balanced, that inflation could occur and the economy of our country could suffer terribly.
So the candidates you support are because of their fiscal policies, most important.
That's exactly right, Barbara. I'm really focused intensely on economic and fiscal issues, because if those go bad, the country as a whole suffers terribly.
Barbara, you got any more softballs there? Oh, so you're doing this for fiscal reasons. You're not a bad guy. You support gay rights. Oh, okay, you support gay rights, so you must be a good guy. Look, he's a social liberal. All you limousine liberals in New York and Washington, don't hate the Koch brothers. They give so much money to the Lincoln Center, where everybody gets to watch their opera and ballet. I do declare David Koch's not so bad after all. Now, wait, are you talking about how he put in money to Wisconsin to make sure that the average guy gets paid less on average? This guy's sitting on over $30 billion, and so is his brother, Charles Koch. And you talk, he's like, oh, I obey federal limits on candidates. There's limits. Wait a minute, you let him get away with that, Barbara? Look, man, I guess you stopped being a journalist a while back. She used to be a very, very good journalist and a groundbreaking one. Not anymore. You didn't ask him about the hundreds of millions of dollars that he does in independent expenditures and the money he gives to Americans for Prosperity and all those other groups that does vicious attack ads all throughout the country. And then he goes, oh, golly gee, I do what's legal. I know, you changed the rules through your support of Citizens United, McCutcheon, et cetera, so that your bribery became legalized. So you bribe all these politicians throughout the country. And no, you don't do it because, oh golly gee, Barbara, I'm so concerned about the budget. I want to make sure that it's balanced. That's the only thing I care about. Fiscal responsibility and the ballet. No, what he cares about is the ability to pollute and not get regulated. Watch Brave New Films work on a river near the Coke Industries plant in Arkansas. And the cancer rate around that river is unbelievable. And in the old stories about the Koch brothers, how they stole money from Native American lands, that got proven. They had to pay it back, okay? They skimmed that from the American government as well, let alone the giant tax cuts. I mean, billions of dollars that you have to pay as taxpayers because somebody's got to pay it because the Koch brothers got rules put in there that, for example, if they keep money for a certain period of time as an investment, they only pay 15% less than the average guy. Why are they only paying a 15% rate? Because they bought all those politicians and they didn't do it out of any principle. They didn't do it because, oh, golly gee, I care so much about the budget. If you cared so much about the budget, why did you blow a gigantic hole in the budget with all those tax cuts? They created enormous deficits. It never trickled down. We have those deficits. Bush left behind a $1.2 trillion deficit. Why? Enormous tax cuts to the rich like David Koch. So that interview was an abomination. What David Koch wanted to do was to go on air to get some softballs and pretend that he's just a loving guy who's a patriot and cares about his country, and that's why he puts a little bit of money into politics. And Barbara Walters let him walk all over her and do exactly that. That was nothing but a lie. The reality of the Koch brothers is far, far uglier. You watch all the Brave New Films work on them, watch the reports that we do, go back on YouTube, just type in Koch brothers, and you will see every part of what I'm talking about detailed with facts. Okay, those are the realities of David Koch. That so-called pretty face he put on there is nothing like the reality of what these guys do. God, that was a horrible interview. I mean, that was mainstream media 101. Take exactly what's wrong with the system and put a nice shine on it. Oh, look at that. That turd looks so shiny, looks so beautiful. Oh, go ahead, consume it, consume it. You'll love it, America. David Koch's just looking out for you, so make sure the budget's okay. All right, that's my fun political stories / ones that are infuriating. We'll come back, we'll do Cuba, we'll do Satanic Santa and others. Come right back. All right, back on the Young Turks. Wow, what was that? Okay, am I still in this? Is this still 2014? Is it? Because I feel like I went through some sort of time travel or something like that. I don't know. Okay, we got new transitions apparently at the Young Turks. Yeah, for those of you watching the show.
I started pushing buttons and I found something fucking awesome.
Wow.
One more time?
Yeah, sure, why?
All right, that was it. All right, that was
okay,
it.
somehow that also made the graphic disappear. Okay. It's fun. Especially on power panels, Jesus, go nuts. Okay, so you'll look forward to that on Friday. Now, we've had the Cuban embargo for 54 years here in America. And it was this close to working before Obama went and screwed it up. Who thinks that? Who thinks it was on the precipice of working? All right, so news coming out of the administration that we actually have some sort of deal with the Cubans. Now, it's not like the embargo has been lifted. It has not, okay? There's still a lot of restrictions. I'm going to explain all that to you. But let me go back in time a little bit here to about a year ago when we had, what gate were they called? Handshake Gate. Remember when President Obama shook hands with Raul Castro when there were other international leaders. That was shocking. And how dare he treat him like a human being? He should have spit in his eye. Okay, now, at the time, John McCain had said, I mean, what's the point? Neville Chamberlain shook hands with Hitler. A little much? Actually, later, McCain went on to say, yeah, that was too much. Sorry, a bit of an exaggeration. Okay, but he also said this at that time. Why should you shake hands with someone who's keeping Americans in prison? John, we have our answer today. It's to get them out. Alan Gross was being kept in prison in Cuba. He has been released. Oh, that's why you talk to people who don't agree with you. You talk to your enemies, because those are the guys you're going to make a deal with. Because it's easy to talk to your allies. You can agree all day long about wonderful things that you're both completely sure of. That isn't the tricky part. The tricky part is talk to people you don't agree with so you can get some sort of deal. In this case, Alan Gross, who was being kept in prison for over 5 years in Cuba, who's a U.S. citizen, has now been released. Now, I'm going to tell you all about him as well. He actually turned out to be a guy who was working with U.S. aid. Now, those are guys who actually wanted to make sure that they got around the censorship in Cuba. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Alan Gross. He was trying to get more interconnectivity, specifically for the Jewish community in Cuba. Who knew? Well, actually, I knew because I had a friend in Miami who used to call himself a Juban. So yes, there are Jewish Cubans, right? But mainly to get around the censorship. Now, the Cuban government is totally against U.S. aid, and they think that it works with the American government to undermine their regime, and they're the ones who put in the censorship. So Alan Gross was breaking those laws, and so they put him in jail. Now, that was the risk that Alan was taking, and we love him for taking that risk and for making that effort, because we're against the censorship in Cuba. We're against the government of Cuba overall. I am. I think that it's not like communism worked either. It's not like, 54 years later, they're on the precipice of succeeding. They are not at all. If you go to Cuba, you'll see, as Ben Mankiewicz often says, co-host here on the Young Turks, the entire country seems like frozen in time in the 1950s. And the entire country also needs a new coat of paint, okay? Now, look, that's partly because of our sanctions. So our sanctions did not topple the Castro regime. The Castros have been in charge that entire time. It didn't work. It didn't work. What it did do was cause a lot of suffering for the Cuban people. And if you care about Cuba and you want to liberate them, it's not the best way to go about accomplishing your objectives. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked. So it was time for a change. So here's President Obama announcing that change.
We will end an outdated approach that for decades has failed to advance our interests, and instead we will begin to normalize relations between our two countries. Through these changes, we intend to create more opportunities for the American and Cuban people. Neither the American nor Cuban people are well served by a rigid policy that's rooted in events that took place before most of us were born. With the changes I'm announcing today, it will be easier for Americans to travel to Cuba, and Americans will be able to use American credit and debit cards on the island. Nobody represents America's values better than the American people, and I believe this contact will ultimately do more to empower the Cuban people. But I'm under no illusion about the continued barriers to freedom that remain for ordinary Cubans. The United States believes that no Cuban should face harassment or arrest or beatings simply because they're exercising a universal right to have their voices heard. And we will continue to support civil society there. Moreover, given Cuba's history, I expect it will continue to pursue foreign policies that will at times be sharply at odds with American interests. I do not expect the changes I'm announcing today to bring about a transformation of Cuban society overnight.
Look, incredibly reasonable statement there and very reasonable action here. And as I saw this morning, I thought, look, this is one of the upsides of having a Democratic president. A Republican president would not have done this. They haven't done it in the past. They wouldn't do it in the future. They just wouldn't have done it. So as much as we get frustrated with President Obama from time to time, or nearly all the time, there are moments like this where you realize it does make a difference. And it's going to make a difference in the lives of a lot of Cubans. and us Americans as well. So let me give you more of the details on what this deal is. The U.S. will take steps towards restoring diplomatic ties. The embargo's impact will be eased, but not completely taken away. It takes away some pre-existing, or takes the pre-existing exceptions to the travel ban and expands them. But it doesn't mean that American tourists are welcome. They are not yet, okay? We will be reopening a U.S. embassy in Havana. That's terrific. We have embassies everywhere. Well, we can't have one in Havana. Part of the deal to get Alan Gross out involved releasing 3 Cuban spies that we caught here that were part of the WASP network. Now, a lot of politicians here are complaining, how dare you, you can't release anybody. Now, what you're not hearing a lot about is, first, we got Alan Gross back, and they're pretending that he was just an average citizen who got, kidnapped by the Cuban government. That's not what happened, right? Now, again, I love the work that he was doing, but he was circumventing their laws. That's what he was trying to do. He wasn't an average tourist there. So that's part of the deal. Another is an operative that we had in there that's been in prison for 20 years. The operative is not a U.S. citizen. They have not named him yet, but they are also going to release him. So one of our spies basically gets to go free as well. And 53 political prisoners in Cuba will also be released. So now, the Republicans and Menendez, who's a Democrat, who's another Cuban senator, Cuban-American senator, says, oh, we got nothing out of the deal. That's patently untrue. We actually got a lot out of the deal. Okay, but let's continue on the list here. Easier for Americans to obtain licenses to do business in Cuba. Always got to keep the business going. You heard the credit cards and debit cards you'll be allowed to use in Cuba. Now, you still can't have American tourism, but you can visit for other purposes. And there's a list of the reasons that you can visit there. You can send up to now $2,000 per year to your family in Cuba if you have family there. You can import up to $400 in goods from Cuba, including $100 in alcohol and tobacco. The most important part of that is that means Cuban cigars are back. They are allowed, and so everybody go nuts. People will care about it. I don't care. Who cares? Anyway, the substance of this is far more important. And it'll be the first step, not the final step, the first step toward lifting some U.S. sanctions against Cuba. Now, part of what Cuba's given back to us is all the guys that are being released. It's also allowing citizens broader access to the internet. Of course, not complete access, but much broader access. That's why Alan Gross went in the first place. So not only are they releasing Alan Gross, but they're helping to achieve part of his objective. That's wonderful. And along with the internet comes a lot of new ideas and the beginnings of freedom. That's exactly what we're hoping for, and the fact that they have allowed that is a great step forward. And finally, they'll also allow officials from the United Nations and International Committee of the Red Cross to return to their territory. Okay, all that is very important for the political prisoners that they're holding, among other things. Okay, so we've got a deal. It's a very good deal. I'm very happy about it, and you should be as well. What is absolutely clear is that 54 years of failure was not magically going to turn into success tomorrow. Enough is enough. We know what isn't working. Let's move on to something that is working. So now, in the case of Cuba, since we are beginning to lift the sanctions, who's going to be upset? Of course, politicians here who are vehemently anti-Cuban government. Marco Rubio and Senator Menendez are both Cuban-American senators, and they are livid about this. So let's go to Marco Rubio.
I'm not in favor of the process by which his release was acquired, because I think it does set a very dangerous precedent. It puts a price on every American abroad. Governments now know that if they can take an American hostage, they can get very significant concessions from the United States.
This is such a silly talking point. Now France knows if they just kidnap Americans, they're going to get concessions. France isn't kidnapping Americans. Look, our enemies, yes, might look to do us harm. That's why there are enemies. Okay, but even Cuba isn't kidnapping random Americans. Alan Gross was in there to get around their local censorship and to build up the internet there, which is great, great work. And I love him for it, but that is illegal under Cuban law, and that's why they arrested him. It wasn't out of nowhere, right? So they had some of our guys like Alan Gross and another agent who was not an American citizen but was helping us, and 53 political prisoners. They're all being released, and in return, they're getting 3 prisoners back. That's what you call a deal. But Rubio is very upset about that deal.
My interest in Cuba has always been the furthering of democracy and freedom. I think the people of Cuba have a right, if they are free, to choose any economic system they want. Nothing the president will announce today is going to further that goal. It's absurd. And it's part of a long record of coddling dictators and tyrants that this administration has established.
Yeah, this is so tired, man. Everything that Obama does where if you show any reason at all in foreign policy, coddling dictators. What was he supposed to do? Hey, Raul, how you doing? Washington, bam, and punch him in the face. Got you. But that doesn't get Alan Gross out of jail. That doesn't get 53 political dissidents out of jail. That doesn't begin to get us on a sane track with the Cuban people to help the Cuban people. You're from Cuba. Don't you care about those people suffering there? The sanctions have hurt them. They have not hurt the Castros at all. Your idiotic policy has kept the Castros in power for 54 years. When is it going to get you through your thick head that you're the one coddling the dictator? The more the Cuban people are crushed, the easier it is for the guy on top to keep power over them. So you're robbing the Cuban people of their opportunities, and if they had those opportunities, you never know what happens. Look, and on this issue of, oh, well, it's a communist government, it's a dictatorship, so we can't have any relationships with them. We've had a relationship with China for 35 years, and they're the largest communist country in the world. And you're now saying, wait a minute, now China's not really acting communist, they seem pretty capitalist. Yes, because we started a relation with them, they started making money, and all of a sudden, communism flew right out the door, okay? Now, they got other issues in China, but right now, believe me, they are obsessed with capitalism. And they're building and building, and their economy is growing and growing. Why? Because we opened the door, and eventually that leads to political freedom as well, as we saw, obviously, in the Soviet Union. You could only keep that bottled up for so long. And yes, we even had a relationship with the evil empire, the Soviet Union, okay? We had embassies, we had long talks, we had treaties, we had negotiations back when we were sane. The other country that we have a relation with that's communist, Vietnam. Remember, we had a bit of a war with them, right? 20 years ago, we established a relationship with them. Now they're littered with Levi's and McDonald's. The more you close off Cuba from the rest of the world, the more you hurt its citizens, not help its citizens. But one more from this genius, Marco Rubio.
This notion that somehow being able to travel more to Cuba and send more money to Cuba and travel and sell more consumer products in Cuba, the idea that that is going to lead to some democratic opening is absurd. But it is par for the course with an administration that is constantly giving away unilateral concessions, whether it's Iran or in this case Cuba, in exchange for nothing. At a minimum, I would say this: Barack Obama is the worst negotiator that we've had as president since at least Jimmy Carter, and maybe in the modern history of this country.
Okay, wait. I love when they take pot shots at Jimmy Carter. The worst negotiator since Jimmy Carter. Did Jimmy Carter negotiate anything? Oh, right, peace in the Middle East. He's the one that got the Camp David Accords, where Egypt and Israel agreed not to fight anymore, and they haven't fought since. I would call that a very good negotiator. Hey, which other president's gotten any kind of peace in the Middle East? Still waiting, Marco. Marco! No Polo. Okay. These idiots, their whole plan is, oh, as Dick Cheney said, when Iran, by the way, gave us a great deal in 2004, which we turned down. We wouldn't have to deal with their uranium and their possible nuclear plans, and even Hezbollah, if Cheney had taken that deal. But Cheney told Bush, we don't talk to evil. Then how do you talk to yourself? That's a good question. But beyond that question, listen, you idiots, you negotiate with your enemies, not with your allies. That's how it works. This is an excellent deal. So Menendez is wrong, Rubio is wrong, all these guys who are wedded to their old failures. They're used to failing. They're used to being losers. Here, I'll go to Menendez just to be bipartisan here. He's a Democrat. And he says, let's be clear, this was not a humanitarian act by the Castro regime. It was a swap of convicted spies for an innocent American. President Obama's actions have vindicated the brutal behavior of the Cuban government. What have you been doing for 54 years? You have been vindicating them over and over and over again. They say the great America that is bad and evil, etc., are keeping you down. And the people look around and they go, well, we can't trade with America. We can't get money from our family members in America. I guess the Castros are right. I guess they're the ones looking out for us. You have helped them in immeasurable ways. It's time to get beyond that. Open up Cuba to the rest of the world. Obama's 100% right about this, and these clowns have been wrong for so long that they should have no credibility left in the United States. No one should listen to these guys who have been losing and failing for 54 years straight. Okay, that is very clear. Now let me move on. Turns out that Wall Street lobbyists are licking their chops about the new Republicans coming into Congress. They're like, oh, Republican majorities in the House and the Senate, cha-ching. So here's one of those lobbyists from the American Bankers Association. He says, at the outset of the Congress, I anticipate them being very busy. Meaning, we got to get busy repealing all parts of Dodd-Frank. Any kind of regulation they had on the banks, take them away, man. Let's go back to incredible risky bets which make us more money. Yes! It's time to celebrate. Republicans are back. They're going to let us run roughshod like they did up until 2008. The Hill explains the GOP majority is expected to be more receptive, I love that euphemism, more receptive to changes to the Dodd-Frank law, having fought it from its inception as a misguided response to the 2008 crash. Now, of course, what they're not telling you is that the Wall Street guys donated tremendous amount of money to the Republican Party. They also give a lot to the Democrats, but more to the Republican Party, so they know that they are absolutely in their back pocket. All the talk about the bailouts being upset by that and crony capitalism, it's all a lie, lie on top of lie. Republicans love Wall Street. They love bailouts, and that's exactly what they're going to do. So here are their three things that they're going to shoot for as soon as the Republicans are back in charge. Easing the new requirements on mortgages. Oh, great. Remember how we got into the housing debacle in the first place? We eased requirements on mortgages. There was all those fake mortgages, and then it collapsed. They're also going to loosen restrictions on financial derivatives. Those are the riskiest bets that the bankers make. Great. Loosen the restrictions. Have at it, Hoss. Take even more risk. And, of course, overhauling the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, because we can't have anybody protecting the consumers. Best way to rob a bank is to run a bank. So they are ready to have at it again, to take with this one they already got through, your federally insured money that you put in as depositors, gamble with it. If they win, they keep the money. If they lose, the taxpayers have to foot the bill. And now they want even more, and they think they can get it with Republicans in charge. But there's a little caveat here. There's two things they got to watch out for. One, they got to act quickly, as the lobbyist said, because then presidential politics starts. So let me give you the quote and I'll explain. The same lobbyist says, the window gets narrow very quickly, but I also look at that optimistically. Now, why is the window narrow? Because once presidential politics begins, the Republican candidates will have to pretend to be against the banks. They'll have to pretend that they are populist, that, oh, wait, I'm going to make sure there are no more bailouts. But wait. A year ago, you made sure there were more bailouts. Nobody will pay attention to that because the mainstream media can't look into details, right? That's what's going to happen. So they're like, hey, we got about a year before these guys get really heated up and have to pretend to be against us. This system is so unbelievably corrupt. Wolf-pack.com. You got to fight it, man. Join us and fight back. Wolf-pack.com. Okay, now, what's the second thing they're worried about? Wolfpack. No, that's not true. One day, but not yet. The Hill explains, given Elizabeth Warren's megaphone, the executive said, and it's a banking executive, getting through the next Congress without new restrictions on large banks would constitute a win. So there's a faction of the banks and the bank lobbyists who believe that Elizabeth Warren by herself is so strong that they'd be lucky just to keep things as they are. Oh, come on, Elizabeth Warren, you gotta run. You got them running scared. Isn't that amazing? They have all the Republicans in their back pocket. They have half the Democrats in their back pocket. But they think Elizabeth Warren is so strong that they'd be lucky to come out even. Wow, wow. If you're not convinced yet, Fox News has inside sources from the banks. Look at what they say.
She was the one that said this is a big gift to Wall Street, and I can tell you from talking to people in the financial industry, in banking, on Wall Street, they think she is actually the devil. I mean, without question. Elizabeth Warren is the devil. So they're going to put any money that they have behind Hillary Clinton, which should be a help.
I love it. It's as if like they have a little piggy bank. Oh, let me see. What kind of money do I have? Whatever I have, I'm going to help with Hillary Clinton. They've got millions, tens of millions of dollars, maybe even hundreds of millions that they're going to pour into the campaign to make sure Hillary Clinton's the next president. If you're progressive, you're really going to be in favor of the bank's candidate? They think Elizabeth Warren is the devil because she's the only one looking out for the actual consumers and citizens. Oh, you got to run, Elizabeth. You got to run. You got to run. And if you're ready for Hillary, Axelrod, of all people, actually asked a very good question on TV the other day. Listen to his question.
What happened in 2008 was that Hillary's candidacy got out in front of any rationale for it. And the danger is that that's happening again. You hear ready for Hillary, it's like ready for what? And now Hillary's task is to define what it is that she's running for and running about. And what would the future look like under another President Clinton?
That's such a simple but brilliant question. What are you ready for? What does Hillary Clinton stand for? I mean, she just gave speeches a little while back to Goldman Sachs saying that the bankers are misunderstood. And she got hundreds of thousands of dollars for those speeches where she promised that she would protect them. The banks are literally banking on Hillary Clinton. If you're progressive, why would you go in that direction? What are you ready for? What does she stand for? Meanwhile, you have this woman who was just a Harvard law professor a little while back. And she just gives speeches on the floor of the Senate, and they cower, the banks and the guys who bought our government. Lock, stock, and barrel, they cower from Elizabeth Warren. Run, Elizabeth, run! Obviously, they're afraid of you for a reason, and they love Hillary Clinton for a reason. Don't make that mistake if you're a progressive. Don't think that Hillary Clinton is going to magically, all of a sudden, change her stripes and go against the banks who have been funding her whole career. No, she's here to help them and protect them. Make sure you got somebody looking out for us. Okay. Damn it, I keep running out of time. Damn it! All right, I'm going to do Santa or Satan, and then we're done with it. Okay? One last fun story. Okay. Okay, we got a pastor down in Georgia who has an interesting idea. He believes that Santa is Satan. In fact, you see it right there. He put it up on his sign for the church. It's very, very simple. Santa is Satan. You know, I never thought about it this way, but if you rearrange a couple of letters, I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying that it was a plot all along. But wait, hold on now. Because you might think Pastor Edward Carruthers is crazy, but he's going to make some points that are going to make you think a little bit. First of all, he says, I'm amused by this, Santa Claus is robbing Christ of his glory. Yeah, Santa's kind of being a dick. Right? I mean, it's Christmas, it's not Santa-miss, right? It's supposed to be about the birth of Christ. We're supposed to be celebrating Christ, and all of a sudden nobody cares about Christ got crucified and he suffered for your sins and stuff. Oh, everyone's like, Santa, where's my gifts? Where's my gifts? Where's the goddamn reindeer? Right? I love how Christians are so mental about Christmas as if it's real. Which chapter of the Bible are the reindeers in? Blitzen? Where is he? Can you find Blitzen in the New or Old Testament? It's a pagan tradition. All right, anyway. It's actually not even a pagan tradition. It's actually the Dutch here in New York came up with this idea. They're like, you know what used to happen? In Christmas, you used to give presents to the poor, and the poor would keep knocking on people's doors to scare the hell out of them, for the rich in New York. They're like, let's switch it around. Let's make it that you don't give presents to the poor, you give them to your own kids. Oh, genius. Christ, that guy's totally depressing. He's out. Give me a jolly fat dude in a red suit, okay? Have him drink lots of Coke, and we're all having fun. So it's not a bad point that they've kind of pushed Christ out of Christmas. So if there is a war on Christmas, it might be from Santa. Think about it, Bill O'Reilly. So Carruthers continues. We have come to the point where we have replaced Jesus Christ in his birthday with a fictitious character named Santa, and we have lifted him up instead of lifting up the Savior. It's very hard to argue with that. I mean, even if you're the most Christian dude in the world or conservative dude or pro-Christmas dude, and I love Christmas, but that's kind of true, okay? So now, another interesting point, that he doesn't necessarily intend, but listen to this whole thing. He says, they grow up believing in Santa Claus, talking about the kids. They grow up believing in the Tooth Fairy. They grow up believing in the Easter Bunny. They grow up in some homes believing in Jesus Christ. Well, when they get older, they find out the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny, and Santa Claus ain't real. So what about this fourth person called Jesus? That's a very good question. Now, I don't come at that question the same way that Pastor Carruthers does. I look at it and I go, think about it, right? But he says, no, remember, this was supposed to be about the fictitious guy named Jesus, not the fictitious guy named Santa. And if we're lying to the kids about all this other stuff, they might think that the mythology we have in this book might also be lies. He didn't intend it as such, but that's also a pretty good point. Finally, he says, I want them to know that we believe in and we're going to lift up and magnify him on his birthday, and it's his birthday. It's not Santa's birthday. So Santa, enough of your bullshit. Stop crowding out Jesus, okay? I've had enough of you. So, look, I don't know that it was Satan's plan. Well, actually, I do know. There's no such thing as Satan. Of course, it wasn't his plan, and Santa is lovely, and we all love him because he's not depressing. He gives out presents. He's awesome. He's a wonderful gift of marketing. Okay. Now, having said that, if you believe in all the voodoo of Christianity and you believe there is a Satan, and he wanted to distract from your Lord and Savior, how would he do that? He might kidnap his birthday and turn it into his birthday. And wait a minute, why is Santa's suit red? I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying. All right, one to grow on. Young Turks, we'll be right back. All right, back on Young Turks. Got a lot of great stories for you guys. As usual in the second hour, some that will make you mad, some that will make you happy. Now, before we go on, TYT Live tweets as usual. Alina was very nice to me. She said, Cenk is feeling good today. Love it. That was in the beginning of the show.
Good.
Yeah, I am. I'm feeling good.
Right.
All right, God bless. Dubmaster C was probably the tweet of the day. A lot of tweets about Blake Farenthold. He's the guy going after all the girls getting drunk, Tea Party congressman from Texas. Okay. He says, Blake Farenthold looks like the mucus man from the Mucinex commercials.
Oh my God. Can we bring up a picture? Is that possible?
Oh no. Okay, so I'll read more
it.
tweets, see if you can get a grab picture of Farenthold. That is unfortunately devastating. Okay. Titty Riot with another great tweet on this, and a great name. That's what Farenthold is best known for, his I have a wet dream speeches in the cafeteria.
Oh my God.
He told a staffer that he kept getting wet dreams about it.
I just love how it's always like Tea Party activists, conservative people, family values people. They're always the dirtiest.
Of course.
Always.
He told her he has a Tea Party in his pants about her.
Oh my God, he really does look like the Mucinex guy. I like his shirt though.
Yeah, really? Okay.
No, I like that it's, a little snazzy. It's a little colorful.
Yeah, he's trying. God bless. Mrs. Data says he's a real-life SNL character. He looks like one. He does. He does. Then people were pissed about the story of the Democratic congressman delegate from Virginia who's pretending to be in jail while not really being in jail. And Wendell Whitaker wrote, where's the legal precedent for that sort of arrangement? What the fuck? That's a good question. Raver Madness says, that doesn't sound like jail. It sounds more like marriage. That's funny. Okay, David Sparks about the David Koch interview with Barbara Walters said that David Koch looks like Mr. Burns with a hog jaw. Also somewhat true. These are devastating. Look, come on, I denounce and reject you guys. As good libs, we shouldn't be commenting on people's looks. But keep them coming. And everybody's super excited about Elizabeth Warren. Michael Spence says, this is making me so fucking excited. So there he is. He's excited. Senator Warren, please run for president for Christ's sake. And finally, Senora Traidora says, well, now I really want Senator Warren to run for office. Wall Street thinks you're the devil. Let's be friends. That's definitely. But Lanik Muller says, "Get behind me, Satan. Get thee behind me." For you good church people, you know what that means. Okay. Woo! Let's do it, man. The fun has yet begun, okay? We have yet begun to fight. Let's move forward.
All right. Of all the grand jury documents that have been released, it turns out that one of the most damning includes a witness that corroborated evidence or the testimony given by Officer Darren Wilson in the Michael Brown shooting. Now, witness 40 is a woman by the name of Sandra McElroy, and the Smoking Gun did an investigative report on who Sandra McElroy is. Keep in mind that she's a key witness that totally had testimony that lined up with what Darren Wilson said, okay? And so, of course, she might have had a tremendous amount of influence on the grand jury. Nonetheless, let us give you the details of what she said and what her history is with race relations and mental illnesses. So she had said the following, according to the Smoking Gun. The unarmed teenager, she recalled, gave Wilson a "what are you going to do about it" look, and then, quote, bent down in a football position and began to charge at the officer. Brown, she said, I'm sorry, Officer Brown, she added.
That makes no sense. Began to charge the officer. Brown, she added, looked like he was on something. As Brown rushed Wilson, McElroy said, the cop began firing. The grunting teenager, McElroy recalled, was hit with a volley of shots, the last of which dove Brown face first into the roadway. Okay, so here's a woman who pops out of the woodworks. I mean, gives a perfect description to corroborate Officer Wilson, and then is used all over Fox News. Witness 40, witness 40, witness 40. It's over. Witness 40 said just like Darren Wilson said. So obviously all the people in the community who saw it otherwise were lying. All the witnesses were lying because we have witness 40. Turns out witness 40 is a well-known fraud.
She is a well-known fraud, and if you guys don't believe us, you don't have to. We're about to give you all the evidence indicating that she is a fraud. Now, before we get to all of that, though, just keep in mind that in the past, she has involved herself in other high-profile cases with the St. Louis Police Department, and the cops realized that all of her testimony was a complete and utter fabrication. Okay, on 2 different instances she did this. Cops determined it was a fabrication. Nonetheless, they decided to use her in this case and have her testify in front of the grand jury. Now, according to the Smoking Gun, while the hands-up account of Dorian Johnson is often cited by those who demanded Wilson's indictment, witness 40's testimony about seeing Brown batter Wilson and then rush the cop like a defensive end has repeatedly been pointed to by Wilson supporters as directly corroborative of the officer's version of the August 9 confrontation, meaning that her testimony was really important. Now, witness 40, a 45-year-old St. Louis resident named Sandra McElroy, was nowhere near Canfield Drive on the Saturday afternoon Brown was shot to death. So, understand why this is incredible negligence if they actually wanted to indict Wilson, right? McCullough, the prosecutor, takes her word that she magically, even though she didn't live in the neighborhood, lived nowhere near the neighborhood, and was a well-known liar to the cops and prosecutors, happened to show up on that same street at the exact time that Brown was being shot. Right. Who could possibly believe that unless you wanted to present false testimony? Now, she had changed her story as to why she was there when this all went down. First, she said, oh, well, I was visiting an old friend from school. And then later on, she admitted that she likes to go to predominantly black areas because she doesn't like black people and she's trying to figure them out so she can stop referring to them as the N-word. Oh, I see. Yeah. So she was on an expedition to find the N-words and find out if they're not so bad, when it turns out she found one charging at a decent cop who got shot and happened to be the main witness. What a stroke of luck. It turns out they are the N-word after all. Look at what she found. Here's some more information for you guys. McElroy waited 4 weeks after the shooting to contact cops. By the time she gave St. Louis police a statement on September 11th, a general outline of Wilson's version of the shooting had already appeared in the press. McElroy's account of the confrontation dovetailed with Wilson's reported recollection of the incident. Wow. Okay, so you have someone out there who has basically just reinforced what Darren Wilson said. because she went to the cops 4 weeks later. She already knows what Wilson's account of the situation is, and she's just regurgitating it. In response to the posting of a news report about a rally in support of Wilson, McElroy wrote on August 17th, prayers support God bless Officer Wilson.
Okay.
Okay, so she was a supporter of Wilson. And then 4 weeks later, since she knew what the account of the situation was, according to Darren Wilson, she went to the cops and said, hey, guess what? I was there and I saw the whole situation.
All this is incredibly convenient. Wait till we get to our history.
All right. On September 13th, McElroy went on a pro-Wilson Facebook page and posted a graphic that included a photo of Brown laying dead in the street. A type overlay read, Michael Brown already received justice, so please stop asking for it.
Oh, if you're a prosecutor and you have somebody who's put up on a Facebook page, this guy who's lying dead on the street who was unarmed, he's already received justice. I mean, that is, to say bias is the biggest understatement. But understand something, this isn't a trial. It's a grand jury process. You don't have to show defense witnesses. In fact, if you were a prosecutor and it was in the middle of a trial and the defense introduced her, you would shred her to pieces. Instead, the prosecutor brought her forward.
I know. It's amazing. And not only did the prosecutor bring her forward, listen to this. This is according to grand jury testimony. Grand jury testimony. She was diagnosed as bipolar when she was 16, which is fine. That doesn't or shouldn't exclude you from testifying. But she hasn't taken her medication for the condition for about 25 years. That should probably make you exempt or you know, you should probably recuse yourself in a situation like that if you, I don't know, have a mental illness and you're not taking the proper medication for it.
Okay, now look, you've got mental issues, that's one thing. Again, if you were the prosecutor, boy, would you use that against her instead of introducing her in the indictment. Look, I worked briefly in prosecutor's office. I've said this before. It was when I was in law school, I was just an intern there. But I know how grand juries work. You don't present the evidence for the defense. You don't have to. There's nobody there who's supposed to block. It's just to see if you're going to get a trial. You only present the evidence on your side to put this literally mentally unbalanced woman on. Now, look, if she didn't have the record of making up cases in St. Louis already, you might say, oh, well, hey, listen, don't hold her mental illness against her. But we know that her mental illness has led her to make up stories before. In 2007, she involved herself in the case of Sean Hornback. He was a St. Louis boy who was kidnapped and held hostage for more than 4 years. That was a huge case in St. Louis.
Yeah.
It's not like the cops and prosecutors weren't aware. It's not like she had made up something in some small county in Missouri and nobody knew. Well, I mean, how could they know? It was a giant case. She was shown to be the person who made up stuff about that case because she wanted to be in the news.
Yeah.
The prosecutor, it's not like it was negligence. He knew she makes up stuff.
Yeah.
He brought her to make up stuff to support Wilson so he wouldn't get indicted, when in fact it's supposed to be him who's indicting Wilson. He was on the other team the entire time.
And if you don't believe that, there is more in terms of her racism. She was very overtly racist in some of her online postings, okay? She has since deleted her daughter's Facebook page. She's deleted her own Facebook page for her own safety. But here is some of the stuff that she wrote in the past. Next to a clip about the disappearance of a white woman who had a baby with a black man is the comment, see what happens when you bed down with a monkey and have 8 babies and party with them? A clip about the sentencing of 2 black women for murder is captioned, put them monkeys in a cage. The opening entry in McElroy's journal on the day Brown died declared, well, I'm going to take my random drive to Florissant. Need to understand the black race better, so I stop calling black niggers and start calling them people. Sounds like an impartial witness.
If you were the prosecutor, as McCullough was, and she came on during the trial, you would get all of this if you were anywhere near competent, right? All you would need is a quarter of this to totally destroy her credibility. Again, what is incredible is that he didn't do any of that. Instead, he presented her. Look, if you say that he was on the level and he wasn't throwing the case and he's a good man doing the right job, the best he could, then you have to admit that he is the most negligent prosecutor we have ever seen in our lifetimes. Because that is the best case scenario. The reality is he threw the case and he brought on a well-known liar that he knew was a liar to lie to the grand jury to make sure they wouldn't indict Wilson. But okay, don't believe me? You want to take the best case scenario? McCullough is the worst prosecutor in the country. Who would bring on a madman like this and have her present obvious false testimony in front of a grand jury when you're trying to indict the guy? I mean, he should be disbarred for negligence if he did not have bad intent. I mean, you got to disbar him. The worst prosecutor anyone has ever seen.
Well, Cenk, you got to be fair to him, though. I mean, Michael Brown did rob a store, and Michael Brown did have a battle over the gun. So therefore, even though he was running away from Darren Wilson, and even though he had his hands up, and even though he was 30 to 40 feet away from the cop, he posed an imminent threat, so he deserved to die. Yeah,
by the way, you know that he didn't, like, look, we saw the video. It looks like he robbed the store. That never, that never got adjudicated, and I just feel bad that the trolls keep bringing that shit up, right? And the thing that pisses me off about it is, I hate having a conversation we shouldn't have to have. Did Trayvon Martin smoke any marijuana when he was in high school?
How many of the trolls who are defending George Zimmerman smoke marijuana? I'd love to know.
Yeah. No, like, we don't need to get into Tamir Rice's, Jonathan Crawford's, Michael Brown's, Eric Garner's, Trayvon Martin's lives. We don't need to get into their lives. They're the ones who were killed. They didn't do the killing. They're the ones who got killed. So, and they were all unarmed. They were all unarmed. No, but some of them smoked marijuana, and Michael Brown did something bad that day. I didn't like that video either. That doesn't mean you shoot him in the head. All right.
You guys remember when Rudy Giuliani said, it was after the non-indictment and everything, he said these witnesses that supported Michael Brown's story, or supported, that wasn't his story because he didn't speak, they were friends of his. These are the guys from the neighborhood who have an axe to grind with the police. All these things actually are characteristics of this woman. She supports Darren Wilson, obviously we saw from some of the posts. She has an axe to grind with black folks. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious. So all these things, actually, it goes back to the same thing over and over again. Every time they say something about what is happening with whatever opposition, it's actually what they're doing. It's sending the attention the other way because that's exactly what's happening. It's obvious, but, we keep falling for the same trick.
Anyway. No, that's absolutely right. Whenever I think about McCullough, it makes my blood boil. Look, remember, there's so many cases we don't cover on this show, okay? Because it's not about the original crime. Crimes happen, right? It's about the injustice. Like, do you do anything about it? So, for example, if a cop shot somebody who was unarmed and he did it in a wrong way, and then the police officers reacted and said, hey, wait a minute, now that's not right. And the justice system worked, and they put the guy in jail, or at least they tried him. Well, you go, okay. And in fact, even when George Zimmerman was tried, I said, hey, they tried him. We did the best we could, right? It's about whether you get justice or not. And that's why McCullough gets under my skin so much. He purposely threw a monkey wrench into the justice system to make sure there was no justice.
And during the press conference announcing the grand jury verdict, he made a point to repeatedly mention that there were witnesses that changed their testimony about him putting his hands up in surrender. It's interesting that he really emphasized that, but failed to really do a proper investigation of witness 40. Or maybe he did a proper investigation. That's exactly why he utilized her in this grand jury verdict.
Final point. It reminds me of Dick Cheney. They say, oh, well, torture doesn't work. Why did Cheney use it? He used it because torture doesn't work, right? And he gets you wrong information. He wanted wrong information. He wanted somebody to say Iraq did it. And he got somebody to say Iraq did it, right? And in this case, why did McCullough use a well-known liar? Because he needed a well-known liar.
It's amazing. All right. CNN wanted to do a segment where people interact with police officers and get to ask them questions about the work that they do. Now, according to Mediaite, the CNN Tonight panel, which airs Tuesday night, is set to consist of 5 officers who have used deadly force in the course of their job. The cops will field questions from social media users responding to the campaign as part of a town hall discussion. Sounds like a really interesting segment, except when you have a bunch of people in the country that are upset with cops using deadly force, you know you're going to get trolled, especially on Twitter. So people did take to Twitter, and they put some interesting tweets up that I want to read to you guys. One person said, I have a math question. If one black man has 0 guns, 0 knives, and 2 hands, how many bullets does it take to disarm him?
Oh, Ben, CNN, how did you not know this was coming?
They think that this was a success, though, right? I mean, look, no matter what you do on the internet, you are going to get trolls. And to be honest with you, I'm loving this type of trolling.
This is the first time we're in favor of trolling.
Yeah. I don't even know if you can consider this trolling. I think that it's actually valuable social commentary.
Yeah, and they're not doing it to be jerks. They're doing it to make a point, and it's a legitimate political point, and it's not the first time we've loved it. Actually, a lot of these hashtags have been taken over by people who wanted to make a social or political point.
Yeah.
And this is another good example. What I'm amused by is that CNN has no concept of social media and was blindsided by this.
Yes, even though they're doing an entire segment dedicated to social media. By the way, of course, the hashtag they're using, Ask a Cop. Another one, got both hands on the keyboard, cool if I reach for the remote, hashtag Ask a Cop. Okay. Yeah. Doesn't it bother you, even a little, that so many of your colleagues keep getting away with murdering unarmed black people? Hashtag Ask a Cop. So a lot of really harsh feedback. But again, CNN feels like they did the right thing. They think it's going to be an interesting segment. I want to watch it. I want to know what's going on, to be honest with you.
Hey, maybe they'll get a cop and they'll ask them all those questions.
That's true. No one's going to ask them these questions.
No, but CNN, if you're going to do it and you're going to say, okay, I'm doing a social media thing, well, do it then. Do it. Why bring on, one of these cops who've been defending all the cops out there that shot somebody. That meathead that was on MSNBC, Officer Fulmer from Cleveland, who threatened the wide receiver from the Browns and said, we do security at the stadium, you know that? And he says he needs an apology from himself. Bring him on and ask him all these questions. You want to do a segment? Do it right. Do it right. Just ask him. And by the way, what's the harm in asking him? Like, we might offend him. Ooh.
Well, you don't want to ask them hardball questions. I mean, you might need them to come back on your show in the future, so you don't want to offend them.
Okay, so, you wouldn't want to serve the audience that you asked to participate by actually asking their questions, which are, by the way, perfectly legitimate.
Anyway. That's mainstream media for you. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to give you the updates on the whole Sony hacking story, including theaters that are refusing to show the interview because of terroristic threats.
I don't know what I should do.
All right, back on the Young Turks.
That's hilarious.
We're not saying anything. We haven't said a word. That is fucking hilarious, man. Okay. Nicely done. Who was it? I'll look up again who that was.
Wait for Madness, right?
I'll look it up in a second, just to make sure. Okay. Now, Dorf on TYT wants to chip in a question at hashtag Ask a Cop for CNN. I'm not black. Is that why I can breathe? Okay. Ask a cop. I don't know. R.A. Nos says, great point, JR. The misdirection and injustice are the worst aspects. Tom Zawacki basically asks, I'm sure that Fox News is going to be fair and balanced and rip this woman to shreds, right? Witness 40, right? I mean, that's coming any second now. I'm sure Sean Henry's going to do a segment on it. And here we go. Okay. Running out of time, so let me do member shout-outs. And it was Dubmaster C. It was Dubmaster C who came up with that tweet. And by the way, it says here in my notes that Vegas has only 1 day left to tip, I think. So MattisHealthFilm.com. Remember, almost all of us are going to be there. Me, Anna, Steve, maybe JR is going to be there as well. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, I've now seen it in all these different cities. Every audience has loved it. I mean, Andrew did an amazing job with the movie. So if you're anywhere near Vegas on January 8th, that is when we're going to do it, and we are likely to be intoxicated. So come check it out, matishellfilm.com. And the members of the day are William Emerson, member number 2741, and William Beeson, member number 1574. Okay? Both Williams, you guys rock. Wait, I have a juicy one today for you guys. Shoot, I got to remember it in a second. Steve, did you want to jump in?
I just want to say one quick thing. Today, George Stinney was exonerated. He's long been dead. George Stinney was a 14-year-old black kid in 1944 who was convicted of murdering 2 white women. The trial lasted, I don't even know how long the trial lasted, but the jury deliberated for 10 minutes, 12 white men. And it was based on a coerced confession. They had no other evidence except for the fact that they coerced a confession out of him. And then they executed him. That was 70 years ago, 12 white men on a jury, took 10 minutes to execute this guy. And now we have Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old boy, shot dead in 2 seconds. Is that progress? It's really sad and super depressing.
And, of course, there'll be no justice for Tamir Rice. Everybody gets away with it now.
Yeah, the shocking thing is George Stinney got more justice than Tamir Rice.
Yeah, that's really sad. Okay, now, I will lighten things up by switching topics, and because I remembered what we're going to do in the postgame today. Mm-hmm. What kind of porn does not exist? Mm-hmm. Now, there's porn for everything, right? When I tell you what porn doesn't exist, you're gonna be like, whoa, you're right, that's incredible, okay? Mm-hmm. So that's for the postgame. So that's fun. There's a little awkward transition there as we go to the Sony story.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So Sony was hacked after it turns out that they refused. Let me start that over again. Sorry. What Steve just said got me kind of emotional, to be honest.
No, I know. I saw that. I was trying to help with the porn, but it didn't work.
All right. Can we take a break? Sorry. I just need to take a break.
Okay, we'll take a break. Come back to me for a second. Listen, people talk about terror, okay? This thing that Steve alluded to is a small part of what was the greatest, not just act of terrorism, but the era of terrorism that lasted for hundreds of years in this country, okay? 9/11, it was horribly tragic and nothing compared to slavery, okay? Let alone what happened after slavery, where an entire portion of our population lived under sheer terror for decade after decade after decade. The biggest terrorist this country has ever seen was the Klan. And they terrorized people to no end, and there was never any goddamn justice. That's also part of our country. I know Fox News wants you to think that we're nothing but awesome, right? Literally their words. But there is a reality here. Doesn't mean that things haven't gotten better. They have. But it also means we're nowhere near the conclusion or the solution to this, because yes, we still have Tamir Rice and John Crawford and all of that, and we still have the numbers that I gave you from yesterday. The tremendous income inequality and wealth inequality that still exists. So let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. All right, back on the Young Turks. You know, at the risk of getting back into the topic, but you know, when I talk to the Wolfpack volunteers, I often mention the civil rights era, right? And I keep thinking about those kids at the diner. The kids, the ones who started were originally North Carolina college students in North Carolina. And the 4 of them decided we're going to go sit at that all-white diner cafeteria, the portion that's all-white. And they knew that, and they had, when the Klan lined up when it got dark outside the diner, do you have any idea how terrifying that must have been? Okay, let alone all the stuff that was thrown in their face and the hot coffee and all that stuff, right? And the Freedom Riders, right? They would get, when the bus landed, oftentimes they'd get out of the bus and people would start beating them with sticks and etc. And sometimes it'd be at night and they'd see the Klan at the bus stop. Ah, the terror. And they did it anyway, right? So I asked the volunteers at Wolfpack, you can't make a call? You know, you can't call your state legislator after people went through that for freedom, right? So I think we can all do our part in whatever cause you believe in. All right, let's move forward.
Sony's decision to not pull out of The Interview, that movie starring James Franco and Seth Rogen, has led to some serious consequences. As we reported earlier, Sony executives did have their emails hacked. A lot of private information was leaked. Unfortunately, we did report on one of the leaked emails, which I now regret. It was a really bad lapse of judgment and a bad decision on my part. But nonetheless, the Sony debacle continues. The latest update is that they received terroristic threats from a group of hackers that refer to themselves as Guardians of Peace. And they have also made a terroristic threat to any theater that decides to screen the movie. Now, what's all the hubbub? Why are people wondering, or why are people so upset about this particular movie? Well, The Interview is about basically an attempt to assassinate Kim Jong-un that upset the Korean government, or North Korean government to be specific, and of course other people were also upset about this. So the hack took place, the emails were leaked, and now theaters have decided that they will not screen the movie out of concern for safety. Okay, they're worried that a 9/11 type attack is going to happen to them, and so they're not going to screen the movie.
It drives me crazy. We're going to give in to a bunch of punks like this, you know. The government is always telling me that they got to go after Edward Stones of the world because cyber threats are so real, and they're working so hard to defeat the cyber threats. Here they are. This is the cyber threats, right? Let's go up and at them, defeat them, right?
Yep.
So what are you spying in on all of us for? Go get these guys. Go get them. I hate that they gave into the threats.
It reminds me of the whole Innocence of Muslim situation, right? Where this like low budget short was released on YouTube with like subpar actors. And then like Muslim extremists got upset and angry over it, right? Like how sensitive are you? Like just grow a pair. Are you really that sensitive where something like a movie, something as stupid as a movie starring Seth Rogen and James Franco is going to get under your skin to the point where you need to make terroristic threats and hack into people's emails? You're pathetic. I think that's sad.
No, that analogy, Anna, is actually even better than people suspect. Here's why. Because in North Korea, they have created a cult that is in a lot of ways religious. They believe that these people are holy figures, the family, right? His father before him, and obviously the grandfather that started the country. And so it is important for them to be able to quash movies like this, because if it's somehow gets into North Korea, it is going to get people to question whether they are gods. Well, if they're a god, how could they be making this movie that makes fun of God? Right. Why didn't God punish them? But now, by caving into them, what we've created is actually buttressing that idea.
Right.
Backing that idea up where they go, you see that? God smited them, and now they could not release the movie. And they didn't! Don't do that. The top 5 movie theaters are out. They're not releasing it. It's madness.
Can you just think about how terroristic threats have completely destroyed America, right? And that might sound like hyperbole, but really think about it. It's destroyed our political process. It's destroyed our democracy. We have government officials spying in on us indiscriminately because they're worried about terroristic threats. And now it's also destroying freedom of expression because a bunch of people are sensitive little pussies that can't handle a stupid comedy movie. It's a comedy movie. Right?
There is no comedy in North Korea. They haven't laughed in decades.
It's amazing.
So it enrages me. It's one thing, the threats, the leaks, the hacks, etc., and the fact that we haven't even caught the guys. We're told that the government has all these geniuses that work for them to prevent this stuff, yet they never prevent it.
They're really
let
good
alone
at finding
catch
the porn
guys.
we watch, but
yeah. Okay. Anyway, But you can't give in to them. You can't give in to them. This is such a terrible mistake. Rosie O'Donnell went out there and said, I wouldn't see the movie.
Right. We actually have the clip.
What are you doing, Rosie? Okay, here, let's go to the Rosie O'Donnell clip, because I think this is a terrible message.
Of not being bullied by thugs. And that's what they are in North Korea.
Can we ask the audience, like, I'm curious, like, how many people would not go to see it because of this threat? Anybody? Because I wouldn't go. Truthfully, I wouldn't. I don't know. Is that wrong of me? Like,
no, of course not.
I just feel like it's not worth it to me
Right,
to see a movie that's supposedly not even really that funny. Like, why would I well, I heard it's not a good movie, right? That's what people are saying. It's not like this is some Steven Spielberg epic. It's like a quirky, funny buddy movie with two, you know, Seth Rogen, I think, is hysterical.
I just think the point is, if you want to see it, don't let some goon in North Korea change your plan.
Yeah, I agree with that woman.
Yeah, that's Nicole Walsh from the Bush administration. But yes, I agree with her. Rosie, that's such a crazy point. Look, everybody to each his own. If she's scared, right? But if a local movie theater showed it now, I would make a point of going to see the movie. I don't care if the movie's good, bad. I have no opinions on that. I haven't seen it, right? I'd like to see it just to spite them.
I know, absolutely. It's an act of defiance. Now, there are a number of theaters, big theater chains, that have decided that they are not going to screen the movie. A spokesperson for Landmark Sunshine Cinema said that the New York premiere of The Interview, scheduled for Thursday night, has been canceled. Carmike Cinemas, which operates 247 theaters across the country, was the first to cancel its planned showings of the film. And also AMC Theaters, Regal Entertainment, Cinemark, Carmike Cinemas, and Cineplex Entertainment all have decided that they will not screen the movie.
Those are the top 5. All and more in the top 10 have canceled. It's gone. They're not going to release it. So I'm deeply, deeply frustrated. I wish they'd give us an opportunity, but it's supposed to come out on Christmas. And the problem is, look, to be fair to them, I get why they're doing it, right? They're corporations, and they're thinking, oh my God, if any kind of terroristic threat or action actually takes place, they're threatening 9/11. The FBI says it's bullshit. They say we've not seen any evidence to that effect, right? But if it happens, and it happens at our movie theater, it'll destroy our stock price, and nobody will want to come to our movies. Frustrating. I get their logic, but then, okay, follow that to its logical conclusion. Now, anybody can make a threat about any movie and start shutting them all down.
We're all so afraid. I mean, all you have to do is say terrorist, and everyone just freaks out.
Yeah.
And look, I can understand why people at Sony would be worried, right? I mean, the hack was devastating. It really was. It released so much personal information, personal emails. When a hack like that happens, you know, you're on edge. So Sony totally understands why these theaters have decided to pull the movie. But at the same time, we got to be stronger than that. We can't let an upset dictator and a bunch of hackers completely change what we believe when it comes to the First Amendment. And I know this isn't the government coming in and saying you can't show the movie, but this is freedom of expression. We should allow it regardless of how much it offends us. You have the right to be offended, right? But people also have the right to create movies, create music that might not be so great for you.
Yeah, we're getting pushed around by the fucking North Koreans. It drives me nuts.
Yeah.
It's unacceptable. It pisses me off so much, I didn't even say unacceptable.
All right, so there is another wrinkle in the Sony hack story regarding The Interview. Sony believes that it might actually be an inside job that could possibly involve North Koreans. But the reason why they think it's an inside job is because the hack into their emails basically targeted very specific emails. Whoever did this knew exactly where to find the most juicy, salacious content. So now they're concerned. The FBI is investigating it, although they haven't found any hackers. And in response to that, and in response to all of the leaks, there are Sony employees that are planning a class action lawsuit against Sony. Let's go to graphic number 15. 2 former Sony film production workers filed lawsuits alleging the Culver City, California company waited too long to notify nearly 50,000 employees that data such as social security numbers, salaries, and medical records had been stolen. At first, when the Sony employees went into work, they noticed that there was an odd skull on their screens. They realized that there was something happening with their computers. They couldn't use them, so they had to use pen and papers and do business the old-fashioned way. And the executives basically told them, oh, it's just an IT problem, don't worry about it. And it took them a while to actually come forward and say, yeah, we've been hacked.
I can't defend Sony enough here, okay? So, first of all, what were they supposed to say? Hey, everybody, panic. Okay, it was an IT problem, right? What are you supposed to say? They've got all your social security numbers, run for the hills, okay? Tear your hair out and do what? And do what, right? So they got hacked. it turns out about 90% of companies are vulnerable to this kind of attack. So, okay, Sony was not in the 10% that has the world's greatest security. So now people are going to sue them. And come on, man. I don't know, man. Look, I feel, and we're seeing these emails we shouldn't see. And so all they're joking around and stuff like that, I hate it when people hold that against them. I don't care what they said. We should have never seen that in the first place. Yeah. I don't know. We just keep rewarding the hackers for what they did. And
we're doing exactly what they want us to do.
Yeah, and in terms of the inside job, that's a really interesting conspiracy theory, right? And by the way, look, if a number of people worked on this, it is a conspiracy. That's the technical definition of a conspiracy, right? And people have different theories because we don't know who actually did it, right? Yet. So if you were going to do, if you wanted to get this information or you wanted to put it out in public, it would be a perfectly timed thing to do it around the movie, The Interview, so you could say, oh, the North Koreans were pissed and they hacked it, right? Now, the flip side to that conspiracy theory is you then wouldn't have said, I'm going to do a 9/11 style attack in movie theaters, because then the FBI is going to be all over you. I mean, already, because you hit a major corporation, they were going to be all over you anyway, right? But boy, now the entire government is on red alert, and they're going to spend a lot of time and energy to making sure they found out who it is. But nonetheless, I'm amused by the theory that that it was an inside person who, there's a million people who could have gained from this.
Absolutely,
Right.
yeah. I think it's feasible that it was an inside job.
I don't think it's out. If I was the government, I would investigate it.
Absolutely.
I'd try to find out any lead that could help me figure out who it is, and I would investigate anyone that has a motive, right? And there are a lot of people who have a motive who also knew the right information to get, as they point out here, right? And so I would be interesting. I would pursue that. That's not the only thing I would pursue. I'd see where my investigation actually led.
Yeah. God, that hack was devastating. Some of the stuff that was released. I mean, the only thing that I read into with detail was the thing that we reported on with the Obama situation and which movies he likes. But apparently they released salary information about actors and actresses, who made more, who made less. I don't know. It's just not good.
Yeah. There's a reason why things are private.
Devastating. All right,
Okay.
Moving on. Something completely different. People magazine has done an interview with the Obamas, and one of the topics that they discussed was race relations and some of the situations that they went through in their lives as black people. And one thing that I thought was really interesting is that even though Barack Obama was a constitutional law professor, even though that he was obviously very, very accomplished, he had to deal with some stereotypes and profiling as well. So apparently he said the following: there's no black male my age who's a professional who hasn't come out of a restaurant and is waiting for their car and somebody didn't hand them their keys.
That's interesting. And I'm glad that he's mentioning that, and it's important that people know that. But I have to say, I'm going to be a bit of a skeptic here. I have a problem with this. You know, they talked about how they were at some big cocktail event where they're wearing tuxes and somebody thought he was a waiter. Like, these are very mild stories.
Right.
So either Barack Obama, for whatever reason, did not have the experiences that a lot of other African Americans have had, and I talked to JR about this morning, right? Or he has had much more significant experiences with racism and is not sharing them.
Right. Well, here's the thing. The full interview isn't out yet, so I don't know exactly what he said. But
If he said something bigger, believe me, they would have teased that.
But my biggest criticism of President Obama would be the fact that he is very careful when it comes to discussing race relations, because he's worried about what the right wing is going to say about him when it comes to that specific topic, right? Now, when he was campaign Obama, part of his platform was addressing these types of things, and he hasn't really done much for the black community, right?
Look, I showed on the show the other day that median wealth for black households, for white households, has gone back up a little bit, not much, by the way. So the recovery is horrible for all of us. Top 1% being exempted, because 93% of the gains, for example, in the year 2010, went to the top 1% of the so-called recovery. But white wealth has gone back up a little bit, right? Black wealth and Latino wealth has continued to spiral down, not up, during the so-called recovery. So there's a lot of reasons to say there hasn't been a lot of action on behalf of the African American community. But specifically to this point, when it was his campaign, back in 2008, he gave one of the best speeches I have ever seen on race relations. Remember the speech he gave about race when a Reverend Wright issue came up? And look, that was part of the reason we supported President Obama back then. Was we're like, wow, what a speech, because that laid out real issues that America had to grapple with. So when it was things that mattered to him, he can give a speech. He can give a great speech, right? When now that he's president and he's already been reelected, oh, somebody handed me their keys and somebody thought I was a waiter. Those are real problems.
Yeah.
But they're not. So a cop never harassed you. You never had any dealings with housing discrimination. I mean, a myriad of things. Look, let me just not quote JR, not go to him, but let me ask you, JR, right? So which of those two things do you think it is? Do you think that he was lucky and he didn't have those kind of significant issues, which is of course possible, right? Or he has and he's holding back?
Well, like you were saying, we talked about it this morning, and I think it is more of the he's experienced it. He doesn't want to say it. I don't think it's, again, I don't know the experiences the guy went through growing up, but I think in dealing with how he grew up, who he grew up with, who he was raised by, it seems impossible that something more significant didn't happen. And I think his interest is in not saying something so bold and possibly ugly that happened to him that he'll get criticized. You know, he knows the climate right now in the country. Anybody that talks about what has happened, I mean, he caught flack for saying if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon. Or and then we talked about the professor, the Harvard professor. Was it Harvard?
Yeah.
The beer summit, and I mean that shook him. He came out really quick and very reactionary to exactly how he felt about it. And I don't think he would have had that kind of immediate reaction if he didn't ever experience anything. So once that did happen, though, he said, I'm going to go ahead and continue to speak on it, which is what my frustrations are. He speaks on it at a low level, just enough to have his voice in there and someone say, the president spoke about this. The president spoke about Garner. The president spoke about Ferguson. And he said, everybody calm down. There's nothing that definitive. And he's staying at that same pace.
Can I, really quick, let me jump in. I actually think you guys are right. I mean, one of the things that he could have talked about is the fact that people questioned his U.S. citizenship just because he's black. You know what I mean? Just because of his name, just because he's black. I mean, that, I think, is a more significant example of the racism that he's had to deal with than, the waiter thing and all that. So, look, you got to recognize he's a politician. He's a politician, right? That's the major explanation. And if you guys think we're being unfair, think about it this way, okay? Let's say that he was lucky. He didn't have any major incidents of racism that a lot of African-American males have had to deal with, right? And that's why JR says what he says, because he's African-American, he knows a lot of other African males, and the overall experience is one where you have a lot more significant experiences with racism. But okay, let's say that Obama was lucky and he didn't have that, okay? This would be a moment for that conversation. This would be a moment where you pull in, JR's idea from the morning meeting was, pull in 3 successful African Americans and 3, middle-income African Americans, bring them to the White House and have that conversation with the American people. Have them tell their experiences. First, whether it's somebody who's not doing well or middle class, et cetera, they tell their story. And then you turn it to a professor or a lawyer or an accountant and they tell their story, right? And when people hear those stories, it might make them go, wow, because they don't have any idea how pervasive it is. And we have a black president. You only got 2 years left. What are you waiting for? This would be the time. This would be the time to tell the rest of America what the average black person goes through. What was the point of having a black president if you don't do that? Because I know you can, because you did it during your campaigns when it mattered to you. Right. Right? When you needed the vote. When you needed the vote. So now, can you deliver for everybody else and have a real serious conversation about it? And JR is right, everybody's right, Anna's right. Well, the reason he doesn't want to do it is Fox News is going to yell at him. Oh, he made it racial, he made it divisive. Who cares about Fox News? Isn't it past time that you stop worrying about them and do what we elected you to do? You're going to run out of time and then going to think like, oh, why didn't I act when I could have? I hope you think that at least, if you've got a conscience. All right, moving on. A Texas plumber had traded in his Ford truck earlier this year And then he was surprised when he started getting death threats about it. So why the hell did that happen? Well, it turns out that there was a picture circling the internet of ISIS fighters using his truck, and unfortunately, it still had his business's decal attached on it. So there it is, Mark 1 Plumbing.
Jesus.
And so the poor guy is Mark Overholzer, and he just couldn't understand why he was getting all these death threats, okay? He's been inundated with threats after a photo of his old Ford work truck appeared on a terrorist Twitter feed equipped with an anti-aircraft gun in the bed and still bearing the company logo on the door. Disaster. So they contacted the company that he traded the car in with, and they were like, look, at this point, it must have been passed down to so many people that we don't know how this happened, right? But sorry, your car's in Syria.
How did that happen, man? How did that car get into Syria?
Take your decal off when you trade in your vehicle.
Bingo. Okay. If you're selling your car and you got a TYT bumper sticker on it, take it off.
Oh my God. Okay. Oh my God.
Jesus. Okay, it's not him. It's not him. The plumber is not some sort of terrorist architect who's in Syria mowing people down. He's just a plumber.
Oh my gosh. Amazing. All right, bad luck for him. Vladimir Putin is set to do his annual press conference, and he wanted to publicize it by releasing a video, and it's one of the most dramatic videos you will ever see. Take a look. I feel like that was a trailer for a movie, and also what I love is all the positive imagery was about Russia. Like, look at our figure skaters and our astronauts. We fucking rock, right? And then you have like the ISIS fighters, and then you have all the disasters, natural disasters, and all that other stuff happening in other countries. We're chilling though.
That's for a media conference.
I kind of liked it.
Yeah,
That's marketing.
It's called the Washington Conference.
Yeah. I like the dramatic music the most.
But I mean, it scared me a little bit. I don't want to go to that. I mean, the beheadings and the people blown up. Why am I going to that conference?
You know what that, I know, but you know what that music reminded me of? When we first started the current show and you would walk through the curtain.
Yeah. Yeah, that was badass. You know what I'm saying?
So you got a little bit of that Putin complex, Uger.
Okay, listen.
You don't like that.
No. That was supposed to be ironic. It was supposed to be tongue-in-cheek.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I remember this was so cheesy, and at the time we all thought it was a good idea, to be fair to you. We had to clap when Cenk walked through the... Yeah! Woo, Cenk!
Well, to be fair to Putin, you guys are right. It does look like a badass conference. And if you're going to go to a conference, they're usually boring. That one doesn't look like it's going to be boring.
It looks action-packed.
I mean, you might accidentally get assassinated, but you're not going to be bored. Okay.
All right.
We one last one? You want to do the porn one or the dog one?
Let's do
JR left. Let's do the porn one. Because JR cares more about the dog thing. And
all right. This is an unfortunate, probably one of the more unfortunate stories of the day. Vivid Entertainment has offered $1 million to see Honey Boo Boo's mother and former boyfriend have sex on tape.
Former boyfriend of the mother, by the way. No?
Of the mother, yes, of course. So this is Mama June and Sugar Bear from Here Comes Honey Boo Boo.
Do any of these people not have a nickname?
I don't want to see them have sex. Okay, so there is a certain genre of porn referred to as BBW, Big Beautiful Women. I'm a fan of that genre of porn. Not myself, like I don't watch it, but I like that it exists, right? Because that means that there are dudes out there that enjoy women of all shapes and sizes, that makes me happy. But I
God
don't want to
bless.
see Mama June having sex, especially since I learned a lot more about her this year. The reason why she and Sugar Bear broke up was because she started dating the man who was convicted of sexually assaulting one of her daughters. So she's a pretty fucking hideous person, and I don't think she should receive $1 million to have sex on tape. She shouldn't receive any reward for anything.
Apparently, she had admitted to being with another convicted sex offender, which actually is the father of 2 of her teenage girls. So this is not the kind of person that you want to glorify in a porn movie, right? Like, so if you minused all that out, right, and you took out like the hideous elements of the story, then everybody's having fun, and God bless America.
Are they, though? Are they?
I don't know that I'd be having fun, right? But there are some people that would have fun, and I actually think this thing that Vivid does is pretty genius. I had this idea a while back. Okay.
Did you? Okay.
No, because look, people want to see people they can relate to having sex, right? That's why amateur porn does better. That's why we've talked about how all the super fake porn stars, it's getting old for everybody. The boobs out to here and the shoes that are this tall, and it's all unrealistic, et cetera, right? So they're finding people that people know, like, oh, I know that the bears and the boo-boos and whatever they are, right? I saw them on TV. Oh, I get to see them having sex. The teenage mom from MTV, these are the same guys who paid $1 million to have her go backdoor, right? I know it's terrible, except dudes are like, oh, I saw her on MTV and now I see her doing this. They love that.
I know, but there's this line, and Vivid has crossed it, okay? And they crossed it with this latest PR stunt, okay? This is disgusting. Because even if they don't actually go through with it, and this porn is never created, and I never see it, I have now visualized it, and I went from liking Vivid Entertainment to now despising Vivid Entertainment. I don't want to see that woman having sex, okay? And I can't subtract all of the terrible elements about her, right? So if it was just like she's a totally innocent woman and I don't find her attractive, but they decide, hey, you know what, she's BBW and there's a market for that, cool. But there's just too much toxicity attached to that and it grosses me out. So let me read you a part of Vivid's email or letter to her. They said, one of the new genres that has become popular on Vivid TV and Vivid.com is BBW. I don't think that's a new genre, but whatever, which stands for Big Beautiful Women. We believe you fit into that category. Wrong again. Mike Sugar Bear Thompson and you should seriously consider making a movie with Vivid that could earn you up to $1 million or more. And that's from Steve Hirsch.
By the way, once you make that offer, they're not bluffing. I mean, they've made that offer and delivered on that offer before. You think she's not going to take it? So
gross.
Okay. So God knows. Okay, at least the Sugar Bear guy is innocent. So
yeah, I have no problem with Sugar Bear.
It's
you know
fine.
what? Offer him $1 million to have sex with someone else.
Okay, Sugar Bear can do any kind of porn he likes. By the way, Vivid also, to be fair to them, brought you Kim K Superstar. So they've been doing this for a while. They're the good people who have unleashed Kim Kardashian upon us, for better or for worse.
Thank God. You guys are the ones responsible for her tremendous wealth and her fabulous lifestyle.
So back in the 80s, Larry Flint of Hustler offered Nancy Reagan $1 million to pose nude for Hustler. Of course she didn't do it, but that was great PR for Hustler. So Vivid's taking off on that. You know, is Vivid the one that did Nailin' Palin?
I forget.
Yeah, but see, like, yeah, this is a new thing where they make porn of people who, well, the actual person or someone who looks like that person who's famous.
No, it's if I was in the porn business, I'd have beaten them to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, they're crazy. They should be offering $1 million to everybody. All those desperate housewives, go have at it with each other. People aren't going to buy that? You crazy, dog. They're going to buy that like nuts, right? It's
interesting choice of words.
Right? I mean, you name it. You name the race. You think some woman who was on Survivor 13 years ago isn't desperate by now? They're $1 million?
Disaster.
Women that were on American Idol. You think they're not going to go for $1 million? Right? People will watch that stuff. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that's more of a target-rich environment than you might imagine. I'd go away from this and I'd go more towards that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, people might be interested. I'm just saying. Okay. Word to the wise. Okay. Now, For those of you who are members, and by the way, $1 membership. People are starting to realize, like I'm getting tweets like they're like, that's actually a pretty good deal. And we're not fucking around here on the Young Turks. You miss a deal and it's gone.
Yep.
Okay, I don't think we have ever gone back to a deal that we offered. Okay, if we go back to it, it might be 2 years later, 5 years later, but we hadn't happened yet, right? So when we say limited time, we mean limited time. So first month of membership will be $1 if you sign up between now and New Year's Eve, okay? At New Year's Eve, when you start hearing this, that's when Dave Kohler presses a button and goes, sorry, no more. Okay?
Good luck trying to get Dave Kohler to bring back that special. Not going to happen.
Oh, Dave Kohler's not going to be buying that. Okay, so we have opened up 2 weeks of Dave Kohler's mercy. Jump in it. Okay, $1 membership for the month. So that's tytnetwork.com/holiday membership drive. Holiday membership drive. And in the post game today, speaking of porn, what is the one kind of porn you never see? And when I say it, you'll go, oh. And then what that tells you about our nature.
Okay.
Interesting. Ready?
Bye-bye.
All right, back on a Young Turks post-game show. Whoa, sick dude on.
You guys are ridiculous.
So a couple of things. Number one, I like how we came in with the Seinfeld kind of like bloop, 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 bloop. And then followed up with boom, blam, the world's on fire.
Can we play a little more of that music?
It's a mix of 80s porn / Seinfeld intro.
By the way, speaking of porn, you know what ruins porn more than anything? Music. Like, why do people put music in porn? Like, it totally
No,
turns me
it's
off.
not sex unless you hear the bloop, 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 bloop.
No.
And you don't know, when I grew up, it was more Benny Hillish kind of music back in porn in those days.
Terrible.
It's still bad music, but it was, yeah. Isn't that so Seinfeldy?
It is.
/ 80s porn? It's both in there. I know my nonsense music. Okay. Real music I don't know. Nonsense music I know. Okay.
Expert.
Yeah. So 2 quick notes before we go back to the porn and I tell you what kind of porn does not exist. 3 quick points. First of all, we have new gadgets on our. I just wanted to call it a transistor for a second. No, why am I blanking on it?
TriCaster?
TriCaster, thank you. So that's why you're seeing Jesus do all these transition stuff. So Jesus, give me America. Wait a minute, what is this?
Typical Mexican trying to take over the country, taking over our
this is the
jobs.
guy, you know. I knew we shouldn't have let you in. Actually, you came in before I did. But anyway. Okay. You're not going to show us America?
Wrong. Will not show you America.
Damn it. Well, how about this? Sorry.
Oh my God, these are freaking awesome.
Okay, so.
Can you do the guitar? Please do the guitar. Hey.
Oh, you know what? You look like Daenerys Stormborn there.
I liked it.
That's
I liked
right.
it.
Okay.
The guitar cracks me up. It's so cheesy.
We're going to be all over this shit. You're going to, like, you like it now. You like it now. 13 days from now, you're going to be like, oh, come on, enough with
Make
the
it
fucking
stop.
graphic transitions. Why? Why would you do that? Maybe for a music show. That's right, Rock and Roll Jesus. That's right.
It's so good.
All right, we're having fun now. Okay. Point number 2 is Stephen Colbert. Exactly. Stephen Colbert is exploding. He's done. Is this tonight his last night? Something along those lines. Tomorrow's his last night. And I've had this fake rivalry with Stephen Colbert, which he has not yet noticed. And I don't do it that much at all. Like once every 3 years, I'll pretend to be against Stephen Colbert. I once even pretended to sue him. Then I felt kind of bad because the Associated Press picked it up. And I was like, oh, I was just kidding, dog. And I didn't have the heart to tell him we were kidding, right? But we made a video where I said, Stephen Colbert, because I pretended he took a Klingon joke. We had the same Klingon joke.
Yeah.
But that happens, right? And so, but I didn't know that comedians are super touchy about that shit. So maybe he does hate me and I don't know it. But anyway, in the video where I threatened to sue him, I said, like OJ did when he robbed those people of his stuff, and that's why he's in jail now. Up against the wall, motherfucker. I'm like, how do you not tell that's a joke? Right, anyway. So Colbert is dying. Long live TYT.
Wait, so I haven't really been following this story. I knew that his show was going to end, but what is he going to do now? Is he just chilling?
Letterman. He's taking over Letterman.
Oh, he is?
Wow, you really missed that.
I don't really care. Letterman,
No, that's true. That's
Letterman
true.
sucks. All those late night shows suck. Everyone pretends like they're so interesting and fun. Do you really watch that shit? Really?
No, he's saying, yeah, it's a format from the 1950s. Literally, they never changed it, right? So it's like, hey, here's my band, and here's Jimmy or Johnny or Steven or whoever the fuck, right? And then, and everybody, fuck the fake applause. I can't watch TV anymore.
Yeah.
The fake applause drives me crazy, especially the talk shows.
Yeah.
Like, oh, here's Jimmy Kimmel. Oh, yeah, fuck Jimmy, fuck. Shut the fuck up and get on with the show.
Yeah, you tell him, Jake.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you got a little heat
I got
there.
worked up about that.
You did.
Anyway, but who knows? Colbert is great, so maybe he'll spice it up. Maybe he'll make
Yeah.
it different, right? And but it's also possible that he's just taking the job because there's an enormously high-paying job, and it's like something that was coveted for their whole lives. They don't realize it's dead. But it's not. To be fair, Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel are doing great stuff online. They're taking some of their stuff and putting it online, so they're still relevant. Everybody else is dead.
So, somewhat related to that, one of the reasons why I don't know about these things, I mean, of course you can read about it on the internet, right? But there are some news stories that I purposely don't read about and don't care about because they don't apply to me. Like, I'm a real cord cutter. I have no access to television in my home, okay? None. Okay, I don't even have basic cable or basic channels or whatever it is. All I have is my Apple TV because if you don't have cable, you need to go get some antenna and it's ugly and I don't want it in my apartment. So I'm like, I'm not gonna watch basic channels anyway, so whatever. So yeah, I don't watch any of this stuff. And I can't fathom people wasting their time watching this stuff.
No, the world has changed dramatically in the last couple of years. So the media world. So in the old day, like 3 years ago, when I ran into a cord cutter, I was like, oh, that's an interesting trend that's coming up.
Yeah.
Now it's not a trend anymore. I've literally talked. I know somebody said once. Now you got in my head that I say literally too much on the show. You're right, except they're always literal. I'm not using it wrong. I just use it too much anyway. I've literally talked to like 10 guys, 10 people in a row that have said the same exact thing you have. And I've talked to almost no one that has TV. Like, of course, a lot of people have TV. Still, the great majority have TV. But in the conversations that come up, they always, maybe because I talk to a lot of people that are under the age of 35, but they're gone, man. They're gone.
That's why it's such a big deal that HBO is going to allow you to do like a la carte, where you're allowed to, you know, have online streaming of shows or online access to shows, but you don't have to have like the TV cable package. Because like honestly, that was one of the only reasons why I wanted cable. I just wanted access to HBO. And then I like contacted friends and I'm like, yo, give me your HBO Go password, and then I don't need cable at all.
It's okay.
No. By the way, HBO has acknowledged that a lot of people do it, which is why they switched to the online-only format for people who are interested in it. And by the way, I'll pay for that. Absolutely. No question.
You just hadn't yet.
Is it available yet? I don't know if it's available yet. But here's the thing. I totally would. I think that that's worth it. Netflix, worth it. Love Netflix.
Yeah. Hey, Jesus, you still using my Netflix account? Okay, now you all right. Hey, look at that. We graduated. We graduated. Believe me, I'm not above it. Anyways, so I'll skip the other stories about Miami and Vegas. Maybe we'll do it on another day. Okay, so are you ready for the porn that is not done? Okay. You ready to go? Oh.
Yeah, I am, because I've been trying to figure it out, and I don't know.
Okay.